Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I remember the time I visited the grave, my life on the line, only my life to save.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss Ghostbusters 2, which came out in 1989, written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, and directed by Ivan Reitman. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, 5 years after the events of the first movie, the Ghostbusters have hit a bit of a low point in their life. They've been sued by every money mogul in the city of New York and have pretty much gone out of business. But an evil spirit has appeared in a Carpathian portrait and has locked sights with Dana Barrett's son, Oscar. It's down to the four Ghostbusters to try to stop this evil from coming forth.
We're the best, we're the beautiful, we're the only Ghostbusters.
So Ghostbusters 1 was a massive, massive success.
Yep.
It was the highest grossing comedy movie of all time. Well, until Home Alone came out, like 1990.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And of course, everyone was like, when's the next one? Is there going to be another one? But there was a bit of a hold-up with the studio.
Yeah.
The head of the studio was just like, big tentpole blockbuster movies, no more. None. Don't like them. Not making them. We're going to go make a bunch of little movies with little money, big investment. They fired him a year later.
That'll do it.
Bill Murray was like, you know what? I'm not acting anymore. I'm on a 5-year sabbatical. Don't call me. I'll call you. And so, like, this script kind of went around. They were like, are they going to make it? Aren't they going to make it? The studio doesn't want to make it. Bill Murray doesn't want to make it. The studio kind of wants to make it. Dan Aykroyd really wants to make it.
Dan Aykroyd does.
Howard Ramis is involved.
Yeah.
Ivan Reitman's like, we'll do it. Like, it made so much money. It's boosted all of our careers. It's going to happen, but when? And, of course, in between movies, a big movie like Ghostbusters, it got a cartoon series, it got all the toys, all the merchandise. I mean, all the merchandise you'd think. It didn't actually arrive until after Ghostbusters 1. It didn't actually start to arrive until the cartoon came out.
Yeah.
And the cartoon is amazing. It was really, really good. The real Ghostbusters, at least the first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So influential, in fact, was the cartoon show, watched by so many kids. That's when the studio went, we need to make the next one a kid's movie.
Yeah.
So no smoking.
Yeah.
Cut out any kind of sex references or jokes.
Yep.
No deaths.
Yep.
Just keep it light, keep it easy, and make it for kids. And they were definitely inspired by the cartoon by having Slimer back in the movie.
Yes.
By having Janine Melnitz have a complete transformation to her cartoon counterpart.
Yeah.
And of course, the film, when it released, did badly.
Yeah.
The critics really, really lashed out at this film as an inferior sequel, as almost as a quasi remake of the original film, and the fans weren't as heavy on it. But over the years, this film has been reappraised and reevaluated. It's actually all right.
Yeah. I could probably name on one hand bad sequels worse than Ghostbusters 2. I won't. But like in the last review, I thought this was 1992 when this was released, but then looking into it, it was 1989, and it doesn't feel it.
It definitely has an early 90s vibe to it.
Yeah, it just feels a little bit later. Maybe when I caught it with all of the advertising that it was going through and the re-releases or whatever. Like I said, I was a big Ghostbusters fan, when I was little, and then when the second movie came out, I was excited. I'm a bit of a sequel whore, really. Grease 2, Jaws 2, Psycho 2, Ghostbusters 2. They all kind of fit into this little realm of continuing this really great franchise. And I was amazed to find out, like looking into the notes and stuff, that Bill Murray was kind of holding the film back when it was supposed to be released. The first one had been such a big deal, and I understand his mentality. It's like, look, the first one was so good, let's not ruin it by making a sequel. But there's making a sequel where nobody is involved, which the studio was going to do at one point. They were going to completely redo the stars. They were just going to redo the name and just release it like they did in 2016. But they didn't. They said, right, let's get Ramis back. let's get Aykroyd back. Let's get Reitman back. Those are 3 of the major things that made the first movie good. We just need the last one. But he's not playing ball. In fact, he wants to play 10 million ball just to star in the movie alone, which was, like, even for 89, that's a fucking shit ton of money.
It's a lot. And I kind of see him as like putting up a wedge, like, yeah, they're not going to pay that 10 million, so I don't have to worry about doing this movie. Oh, they paid me.
Yeah. Oh.
Now, I mean, Bill Murray has even gone on to lash out at the film himself, saying it's disappointing. He was like, oh, if only the characters were given a chance to shine. He was like, the special effects took over in this movie.
Good.
But the thing is, you look at it and you go, actually, the first film had more special effects shots than the second one. So, but he also went on and said that the script that he signed on to make for Ghostbusters 2 was not the script that when he turned up on set that they were making. So he kind of felt like they pulled a switcheroo on him, and he was a bit disappointed with the story. Because he went on to say what Harold Ramis had intended for the story to be, but I think the studio were just like, nope, kid friendly, we're making this now.
Well, they had to control this idea. They had made, when he had walked off and done his 5 years holiday, they were still making money from this Ghostbusters idea, which was being heavily fed to children. Plastic proton packs and styrofoam fucking lasers with the firehouse and the cars. So when the studio said, look, we're making Ghostbusters 2, it was really the kids saying, we want a Ghostbusters movie. But then everybody starts to get involved. And in fairness, like, I love Bill Murray, but this is the same guy that did Garfield 1 and 2.
I'm like Elgato, the cat.
You mean you cough up hairballs on the rug?
I always land on my feet.
So, like, I'm not even touching that one yet, but we'll get to that one. With this movie, I love the ideas that they actually went with. Like I said, I'm a big Ghostbusters fan, so this film works for me on so many levels, and I'll argue it until I die. Like, setting it 5 years later, brilliant. Not next week.
The film's 5 years later as well,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
they've all aged.
They've all aged. They're all a bit more experienced. I want to know what's happened to the Ghostbusters now. And we get that opening sequence with Sigourney Weaver returning as Dana Barrett, pushing a baby pram. Now, immediately you're like, if you're not up to date, you're like, oh man, that's Peter's son. Because after the last film, we'd seen that the two of them were walking off hand in hand, lovely situation. But I always loved the fact that these two hadn't. Their relationship hasn't carried on from the first movie.
I think that was one of Bill Murray's inputs into the script, actually.
Yeah, because he didn't... I think he said he didn't want the focus on them. It would be too much taken away from the Ghostbusters, much like in the first movie. So we get drip-fed the information that the two of them have split up. She remarried. She doesn't even work for the orchestra anymore like she'd had in the first one. And she has this baby. Now, we get that awesome little moment where it kind of rolls through the goo. And something as easy as that, the 5 years is kicked in. That's the first thing you see at the beginning of Ghostbusters 2. 5 years, this bit of deep orchestral kind of evil music, and then this slime kind of... Bleh.
Yep, and it catches onto the carriage, which then starts to wheel itself away. And just as she notices that her carriage is moving, it races down the streets of New York. It's going across the busy streets, dodging cars, or cars are swerving out in the way of it.
See, now this is Sigourney Weaver. She's just come off the back of Aliens, as well. She's heading up to do probably Gorillas in the Mist at some point. She'd been starring in some easily big roles for her. She slips right into the Dana Barrett stuff. So
absolutely, yeah, naturally.
Just makes it look so realistic. This mother chasing after this carriage. What the hell's going on? The music kicks in. The symbol comes up, putting up its fingers. It's like, you're even changing the symbol. This is so cool. Like,
I don't like the peace sign Ghostbuster. I don't like it.
Man, I got drip fed that so much through advertising. I love that and the original symbol. I can't wait for the new one to come up with like a 3, and whatever. But we then see this dying, rusted, sputtering Ecto-1 screaming through the streets of New York. The Ghostbusters turn up at this house, and it's just Winston and Ray, and this lady's telling them that they're in this room, and they're so big, and they walk in there, and it's a kids' party.
And not only that, the kids are ungrateful little whelps.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be He-Man.
Not to go off track here, but I had thought of something while I was watching this for the review, okay? Now, This is the Ghostbusters universe, right?
Yes.
Ghosts exist in this
Or they
universe.
did.
Or magic, whatever. Does He-Man exist?
Well, evidently.
But I started to think that obviously Masters of the Universe has happened. He-Man has come, fought off the forces of Skeletor, and returned to Eternia. What happens if he did that in the Ghostbusters universe?
Well-
and these kids have found out because they're like, they start singing, don't they?
Well, it would make more sense because in 1989, He-Man was not popular anymore.
No,
you
no.
know, that phase had already passed.
Yeah.
It was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles now.
Yeah, we wanted turtles in
Right.
this one.
The Turtles in New York.
Yes, they are. Oh man, missed out on an option there, guys. But they start to sing the Ghostbusters theme tune, which, you know, by this point, people had been sick and tired of it. You know, it'd been used so many times at kiddies' parties and Halloween parties. We all love to sing the Ghostbusters tune, but we'd gotten past that point. And the kids start singing that they want He-Man. And Ray and Winston just look at each other like, let's go get a beer.
Let's get the hell out of here.
I recognise a lot more of the adult jokes in this than I did the first one.
Sure.
You know, even when I was a kid and I was watching it, I was a little bit older than when I first watched the first movie, but their Ecto-1's rusting, you know, they're having to do side jobs. This little moment, we'd said in the last review, didn't he?
It's the moment and the opportunity to catch up with them after those 5 years, and that's where we find out like nobody believes in ghosts anymore. You know, they're out of business. Like their business ended the day they defeated the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah.
And then the fact that they got sued up the ass and that they're in so much debt, they got to do children's parties on the side to survive.
Yeah.
Small bit of trivia for you.
Right.
Is that the kid who says, my dad says you're full of crap?
Yeah.
That's, you know, Ivan Reitman's son, Jason Reitman, who is just finished directing Ghostbusters Afterlife. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's not the only director's children cameo. I think his daughter is also in Egon's lab
Yes.
with the puppy. Let's see what happens when we take the puppy away. And seeing Egon, you know, he's back in school or back in education or back in science, doing weird experiments, social experiments with people whilst he's talking to Dana about what it is that, you know, she's explained.
Well, he was always going to do well, wasn't he? You know, he was always the smart guy, so he was just... Like, I was watching this with the wife, and the wife's like, you can tell this movie's old. She said, this is completely unethical. Locking two people in a room and steadily just raising the temperature up just to see what kind of effect it has.
Electrocuting people in the first one, it's totally fine. Totally fine.
But I was reading in the notes that, you know, they were having real trouble trying to get this script to work, you know, because they'd had a few ideas. They didn't want to do certain things. They ended up obviously agreeing to keep it back in New York. They agreed that obviously bringing back all the old cast members, but not having any interaction with them was the best way to go. You know, like
it was a way to catch each one individually to see what they're up to before they all come together.
Yeah,
again.
but I pick up on all of the information. Like, I don't understand how people missed it in the script of them trying to explain what it is the slime does. And if you listen carefully, it is just literally drip fed to you in bits of the script as they're talking. Like, this is what Egon's doing. He's working out what the negative effects of psychic energy has on the room. You know, and we have the joke with the puppy. Let's give a child a puppy, check the readings, and then take the puppy away and see what happens. And I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, bitch, science.
Yeah.
Yes, science!
Well, I guess that kind of, that psychoanalytical behaviour is kind of the underlying current of what the slime of this movie is actually doing anyway.
Exactly.
So it does kind of tie in there, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. When I was reading the notes, like, people were like, oh, I don't really understand what the slime needs to do, and they needed to add a few extra things.
Well, there is, I mean, we'll get into the slime later, but there is a bit of a disconnect as to how does the slime correlate to the villain of the film. What is the slime's properties and powers, and why does it keep doing different things depending on what it comes into contact with? Now, there is one thing, there's a lot of deleted scenes in this film, and there's one that I thought should have stayed in the film because it does need answering.
Yeah.
And that is, like, right from the get-go with this film, the very first ghostly thing that happens to Dana Barrett.
Yeah.
It's like, Really? Like, not only was she the gatekeeper,
Yeah.
now the first thing that happens is to her, or at least
She's
as an
got
audience.
She's got
Now,
a strong psychic.
That's exactly what Egon says to her in a deleted scene, because she asks, "Why me?" And he's like, "Well, after everything that happened to you, you're now imbued with this psychic, kinetic, ghostly energy, so you will be targeted."
It's possible you have a genetically linked etheric emanation that predisposes you to paranormal vulnerability.
In other words, yes.
Yeah, well, like, I'm sorry, but in movie reference form, why was Brody always attacked by a shark, and why was the Freeling family always fucking attacked by poltergeists? It just fucking happens. If you're in the sequel, you are interconnected with the story. You know? And like, we've got Ray running his little bookstore, which I love his little occult bookstore. I want, what was it? Is it the Book of Ghosts that they always go to? I want that.
What, Tobin's...
Tobin Spirit Guide. I
yeah.
want a Tobin Spirit Guide. I just always want Tobin Spirit Guide. And Peter Venkman is a fucking TV host, World of the Psychic. This bit here is atypical fucking Bill Murray. Just amazing. He's the lead host, and he's got these two supposed psychics sitting with him. One of them who is fully legit got the crux of the movie in his head. You know, I can't remember the actor's name. I mean, he was the dad in Transformers. He's a great actor, but his message to say, like, dude, I'm getting this strong feeling that the world's gonna end
on New Year's Eve.
Like, in what, 5 days? That's another thing as well I gotta bring up. This movie's technically a Christmas movie. Technically, it actually works on New Year's Eve, but it is set
It's a
over the 5
festive
days.
movie,
It's a
yeah.
festive movie. You know, and then the lady being interviewed as
Elaine.
well.
Yeah, I love her prediction. It's like, on February 14th, 2016 is the day the world will end. I was like, 2016? That sounds really familiar. What film came out in 2016?
We're gonna need a bigger boat. Hey guys, check it out!
Oh shit!
She was right! God damn!
Oh, shit! Wow, mind blown. If they had let the world end in this movie, we'd never have got that. But we also have Peter, after he's, you know, finished with his guests, he sees the mayor, which is kind of weird. The mayor is just walking past the office today. A lot of coincidences happen in this movie. And, I mean, this guy's another great actor, and he basically stands toe-to-toe with Bill Murray and says to him, look, you know, you guys got sued by everybody. You're out of business. This is the most you can do. And Peter tries to fight back, but on his own, he's not. He's nothing. He's really got to hook up with the three other guys. And so when he finally gets to the bookstore, meets up with Ray, and Ray and Egon are starting to discuss what it is that's happening to Dana. And we keep flicking as well to the museum that Dana works at with Janosch.
Played by Peter McNichol. I'm just like, man, it's the Dragon Slayer. But mostly people know him as the guy from Ally McBeal, one of the lawyers.
Yeah, I mean, I remember him from the Bean movie as well. He was Mr. Bean's best friend.
Yeah,
but he's Janosch. He's fucking Janosch.
I mean, in the script, it was just an American called Jason. And Peter McNichol was just like, you know what? No. Let's play with this, and I'm gonna create this Carpathian accent, this backstory, and do this. And he won over it with the audition.
Yeah. See, now this kind of brings in lore for me that I've kind of made for myself, which kind of tries to explain some of the stuff that obviously you're bringing up. Because there's Janosch is supposedly from Carpathia, and he's got this picture of Vigo the Destroyer, basically, from Carpathia. And Vigo, played by Willem von Homburg and voiced by Max von Sydow, he's just an intimidating presence. Like, I'll admit he's not as scary as Gozer. Gozer has like a whole background presence in the first movie that you're always there. They try to replicate it again in this one.
I think that the Vigo painting is one of the most iconic and memorable villains in film history.
Now the painting
I don't think the villain is as good as his painting is.
Yeah.
The painting is fantastic. The lighting, the mood, the expression, the posture. Everything about it just is amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not a painting. It is obviously they built the set, they got him in there, they took the photo, blew up the photo large, put it on
Yeah.
the canvas, and I'm just like, it looks amazing, and like that image is still being memed to this day.
Oh yeah, man.
It really, really holds up. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate that the actual presence of him on screen is not as good, but Max von Sydow's voice though
Yeah.
is so good for this character.
What was will be, what is will be no more. Now is the season of evil.
We start to understand as the movie starts to tell us about the slime. The four Ghostbusters go see Dana, do some tests on Oscar. We get the.
I just want to say it's mostly the three Ghostbusters, because Winston had the party scene and
Yeah.
he's barely turned up since.
Yeah, I like to think that he's working off on his own.
Sure.
He's got his own job. He's got his own
Well, I
family.
like the fact that he does turn up at one point and he's the only Ghostbuster in the uniform.
Yeah.
It's just like, man, are they just sending him out to do all the jobs that they don't want to do?
Well, that's it. He'll turn up again in the court sequence,
Yes.
and it's actually really
Well,
good that he wasn't involved with the three guys.
Exactly. He'll turn up at the court sequence, but he also disappears because they only bring out three proton packs. It's like, well,
proton
where
packs.
did Winston go?
He's working somewhere else, and we know that this is a problem because the writers are obviously, they're trying to keep this character in, and it was one of the big arguments for the 2016 movie that they brought out when they brought in the fourth actress for her playing the Winston character, that people were like, oh, they're just trying to shoehorn her in, and I'm like, as a Ghostbusters fan, they should have utilized Winston more. He actually saves two of their lives at one point in this movie. If he hadn't, they'd have died. So that's how integral the Winston character is for all this. The writing and how, Howard Ramis and and Dan Aykroyd put the characters together, that's a completely whole new video, people, that we need to bring up. And we can't, because we're focusing mainly on the Peter Venkman, Dana Barrett stuff.
Well, that was the thing. Like when the first draft was edited together and they looked at it, Ivan Reitman was like, "Oh no, like, there's no scary scares or thrills in the movie.
Yeah.
I've focused all my time on Dana and Venkman's relationship,
And
which
we
is a
don't need that.
retread.
Yeah.
We've already seen this in the first movie, so he was like, right, the film's finished. We need to get everybody back together and we need to go and make some more scary scenes. So we're going to have the scene of Ray and Egon in the lab that catches on fire, that Winston saves them. It was like, that wasn't in the script or in the film. The sequence where they go down to the subway and they see all of the heads on the spikes wasn't in the script.
Yeah.
They were just like, we need more scary stuff, so let's throw in more scary stuff.
That's what I think makes Ghostbusters 2 work, is we don't need to know where Winston is all the time. He'd be a fourth wheel for nothing, because we need Peter and Dana to explain why they're not together. And Dana explains it really well. Look, you called me the old ball and chain. That's why I walked out. And Peter's like, oh yeah, I'm a dick. We get the funny jokes between Ray and Egon, like, did you have toys as a kid? Oh, we had a Slinky. I straightened it. And it's like, you would.
It's not even a full Slinky, it was a part of a Slinky. How do you get a part of a Slinky?
Because it was just a spring. It was just a piece of metal they straight. And then they have their devices, they find out that there's something brewing underneath the street, so it cuts to nighttime and they're digging in the street. Illegally. They've got no permits. They should not be doing this. This is another reason why Winston's not there. They don't want to involve him. They're three guys sneaking in and breaking in. And when they start to lower Ray down into the tunnel, all this slime, I like to believe, has been there. It was maybe remnants of what happened after Gozer left. So a small bit of it got into the city sewers.
The marshmallow.
Yeah, maybe a bit of marshmallow. And it's dug all the way down the Hyde, but then it started to feed on all the negativity from the city of New York. I mean, like, I have never been to New York. I'm sure it's a lovely place. I'm sure. But once they cause the damage, I mean, you get that brilliant moment where he's been possessed by the spirit of Vigo. We've had the head come up over the slime. So Vigo knows the slime's there. Did he aim? That's why he wanted to come to New York, because
I was going to say, did he ship his own painting where it needed to be?
No, I think he influenced Janosch in the background. We don't hear much about Janosch's background. He's just the curator here.
Yeah.
But he knows about the painting, and then once he's been possessed by Vigo needs a child. He wants to be reborn again in another body, and then he goes to Dana's apartment, and you get that wonderful moment where he's trying to get with Dana, but she's keeping him at arm's length, which is good. And then he walks out, and the lights in his eyes appear, And that's the staple for a lot of the Ghostbusters' best moments in both movies is the ghost stuff. I don't need to worry about the relationship of Dana and Peter. Don't care.
Yeah,
you know?
But it does make me go, well, what is Janosch then? Because we've seen Vigo sort of lightning blast him.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, he's not dead. He's not a ghost. But he's got some magic powers now.
He's possessed. I like to believe he's possessed and empowered by Vigo. Vigo
Sure.
can't do much from his portrait.
Yeah.
You know, he's gaining power as days go. So he's given Janosch a little bit of power to find him a child, and like any evil villain, I'll gift you everything after I've got my power back.
So we get to the court case.
Yes.
And so because they knocked the power out and got into trouble, they got arrested, and now they've been sent to court. And I do think this is one of my favourite scenes in the film, because this is where the film really gets going again.
Yeah.
Love Lewis Tully here. Really, really good. Like he's a lawyer, but if you find out that he got his degree at night school, you just see their reactions. It's like, oh, we're going to jail. We're done.
Yeah. I mean, the reintroducing of him as well was really easy. The movie's just like, look, we haven't actually brought him up at all throughout the beginning of this movie, and here he is, and I'm like, yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
Just like the first movie.
I guess he must have been doing their taxes, at least for a little while. Yeah. And then, of course, we get the Judge Wexler, who's just like, don't believe in ghosts, don't believe anything you've said, gets really angry, and then boom! The Scoleri brothers gave him the chair!
See, now, the slime fed on the negative energy coming from the Judge and spawned two ghosts from the Judge's past.
I was going to say, now this is the first for Ghostbusters as well to have two ghosts that are humanoid. I mean, we had the librarian.
Yeah.
Two ghosts that are humanoid, and they know who they are. Like, the Judge goes, that's the Scoleri brothers. I gave them the chair. He knows those ghosts are.
Yeah, that's it. So that's why I like to think that even though the film doesn't really explain it to us, if you know Ghostbusters, if you're fine with just making stuff up, like we said, a piece of the marshmallow from the first movie got into the ground, sucked up all this negative energy, turns into slime, gets brought to slime in front of somebody, and if you infuse it enough with enough evil energy, ghosts will appear.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, like we said, we get that little bit of Winston in the courthouse, like, I'm kind of happy I wasn't with you guys. And then we get the three cases. But it's there's so many callbacks in this movie to the first one. That's why I believe some people like miss the light that the second one has, that it does do things better. This bit here in the courthouse is just the three of them going against Slimer again from the first movie.
Well, yeah.
But it's the two Scoleri brothers, and it shows that the special effects have gotten a little bit better, a little bit bigger. You know, we can actually see the ghosts, a little bit of detail, the tinge of blueness on them, the lights from their eyes.
They use the same puppet techniques that they used for Slimer in the first film, and they just got to build upon it and do it better this time around.
Yeah.
So there's more facial movement, and when you really see the ghosts, you can see how well they are animated. They're moving, they're alive.
Yeah, and the fact that they're much of a callback as well to the Blues Brothers. You know, one's short and fat,
absolutely
one's
are
thin.
the Blues Brothers.
You know, and you're like, this is just so many good callbacks.
And there's some great moments where we don't see the ghosts and we have all the chairs popping off in front of them.
Yeah.
You know, and then when the proton packs are going, the traps are coming out. It's like, this is great. The music's building everything up. Really, really heroic. You know, and then we've got that moment when they all turn on their proton packs for the first time. Go Ray Egon. It's like, yes.
The film again has so many great lines that it's like, you know, I love the bit where the Judge is screaming and he's just like, oh, they're gonna get me, and Peter Venkman's like, you're next, Bubbles. We don't care, they're not after us.
Yeah.
We can take them on, but we kind of need you to release us. And Lewis has this whole little, he's Rick Moranis spiels this law jargon, but in a way that's like a bumbling idiot, but sounds so smart. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So they get their packs, they trap the ghosts, they put them back in, and we're back. And you're like, yeah.
Cue montage!
How did people forget? How did you forget how bad Ghostbusters were? It's brilliant, you know.
They rehired Janine back as a secretary. Don't know what she was doing in the meantime.
she was working as another secretary somewhere
Okay,
else.
but she came straight back.
Yeah.
Transformation complete. Oh, the advert sequence with her and Lewis in the bed.
Yeah.
I mean, that was supposed to be like a couple that attacked in the hotel in the Cedric in the first film. They reused it here. I was like, that's brilliant. But yeah, I mean, the song, it's not quite as striking as the previous film.
No, it's a remix by Run DMC that obviously, you know, they had asked to get in, which it makes sense. If you'd rehashed the same song and we'd heard it over and over again in this one, it would have ruined the movie even worse.
It's just that even by today, like, there are hundreds of remixes of Ghostbusters, and I don't really like many of them.
No, for me, the soundtrack for the second movie, it's not as iconic as the first one, but it works for this movie.
Sure.
It just works for this movie. And I love how, like we said, the animation, so the real Ghostbusters cartoon series have been going between the films. So in a way, they update the Ghostbusters 2 in the movies with stuff from the series. Like, they get the darker suits, which I think is really, really cool.
They do, although Ivan Reitman didn't like it, so he made them go back to the original suits during the film as well, which is why you're just like, which suits are they wearing?
Well, both. They've got more than one uniform. That's how I look at it. You know, if you're watching the animation and the movies, you believe that they just live in those fucking suits.
Right.
And they need to change. They need to wear something else.
What's the first thing we have to do?
Get rid of our uniforms. They absorbed a frightening amount of psychokinetic energy during our battle with Gozer. They'll have to be destroyed.
Well, to be fair, Venkman literally wears the suit like once, I think, in this film, and that's at the very end. Doesn't put it on at all.
I love the updated Ecto 1, you know, with the flashing lights on the side. You know, it's just flashier, faster. You know, for fans, you know, I raised my hand up. My son has 5 versions of the Ecto 1 that we've picked up over the years. And it boggles the mind, but when you see it in its different forms, it's such a beautiful vehicle.
It is.
You know, and it's white with the symbols on the side of all the stuff on top.
It was devastating to know that it broke down during the making of this film. It died during the montage going across the bridge. It broke down and that was it. So then it just had to be towed into place or dragged into shot wherever it was for the rest of the film because it was dead. They did do a restoration a few years ago. Like, they got Dan Aykroyd involved. They got the original Ecto 1. They fixed it all up, and then Dan Aykroyd was like, no. All of these cables need to be changed and moved around because all of the gizmos and gadgets inside are all wired up and serve a purpose. And he got it running, and he got to drive it again. And I was just like, beautiful.
Yeah. So they've come to the idea as well to obviously that there must be a connection between the slime and the painting. I mean, they don't fully explain it to us. But we will find out that somehow Vigo is using the slime. And Dana, she's almost been attacked at her apartment by slime that's come out of the bath. You know, it's tried to attack her and Oscar. So she goes back to Peter. And this starts to build their relationship, which we kind of knew was coming. Nobody else is having relationships in the movie, you know.
Well, I mean...
Lewis and Janine do end up getting together. But we always, like in the first one, I always thought Janine was going to get with
Egon, which the cartoons also continue to explore that. But the film, I guess, just went, nope.
Typical.
Egon and Ray are also, you know, they've used the slime. I mean, we've had the dancing toaster.
Yes. That was awesome.
That's what you come to Ghostbusters for. Dancing toasters.
Well, speaking of what we were earlier, did Egon sleep with the slime? Or did he have sex with the slime?
Yes, he stuck his dick in the slime, Gary. I've always believed that. It's always the quiet ones. Egon was just like, okay, Ray, if I put my dick in there, we'll see what happens.
You're not sleeping with it, are you, Ray?
Moving on.
Yes, please.
And the guys have obviously come up with the idea of, look, you know, there's a connection between these photos. And they've gone to the museum and they've taken the photos. You have what appears to be a slight possession moment between Ray and Vigo. Now, I did read that there was supposed to be more of this.
Yes, there was.
And I'm kind of glad they didn't go with it. It does seem out of place. but it pays off later on in the movie.
Yeah.
Vigo, I believe, doesn't have the power to just be possessing everybody, because if he did, he would. He's barely got enough power to control Janosch. Janosch is still going to work. He's got plenty of time to kidnap the baby when it's at daycare, you know, or get her to bring it in. Hey, you know, bring the baby into work and show him the portrait. That would be a good idea.
Den's going to go out on a dinner date and just leave the baby at home anyway. I mean, granted, she's leaving it with 2 babysitters.
Janine Mounitz from my staff. That's a really trusting. But I'd leave baby with Rick Moranis.
Yeah,
well, he'd probably shrink.
He'd shrink him, blow him up. Yeah. I don't know.
But the you know, Winston, Egon, and Ray, they've been looking at the pictures that they got of Vigo, and you start to see this great change of the real, because the cameras they're using actually have spectral filters, so it can show you if there's anything behind these things. And Ray's just like, look, that's the river of slime I saw. The pictures burst into flames, and they almost die because of obviously all the chemicals in the room to develop the pictures. And Winston is the one who comes across and saves them. I love it when they not only go down to the sewers, but the first bit where they meet up with Peter and Dana.
Yeah. Now, I like the scene that's in the film, but there is actually a deleted scene where they turn up at his apartment and they knock on the door, and they're all stood in the doorway in their suits.
Yeah.
And Sigourney Weaver steps into shot fully dressed up, and Winston just goes, "He's not coming." I was like, oh, that works so much better than the line in the film.
It does. It would give Winston more screen time.
Yes.
You know, I mean, the line from Peter is pretty good, where she just kind of walks off.
Yeah.
And he's like, women, what are you going to do, guys? You know, she just doesn't. I think that's why I much prefer the sewer stuff over the dinner.
Well, yeah.
You know, them in the sewers. I love the focus on Winston in this moment as well, where this voice is just like, Winston.
It was so great, because the others all had echoes, except his. And then the train.
Yes. Just more ghosts. Like, Ghostbusters 2016, I think, had way too much and not enough good material for the actors. In the first 2 real Ghostbusters movies, you had a perfect balance of all the real life bullshit that the actors were having to deal with. Okay, not so much with Winston, but I mean, it would have just been more of the same. Maybe his family, his wife. I reckon Winston's married. I reckon he's married with kids, and the Ghostbusters is a side job. And when you then balance it really well with the ghost stuff, especially in the second movie, you know, there's a great special effect I'll talk about later, but this train itself, you know, like Egon says to him, like, did you catch the number? If you pause it well enough, I reckon you can see the number as you go past.
I think that was the old New York Central, City of Albany. Derailed in 1920, killed hundreds of people. Did you catch the number on the locomotive?
Sorry, I missed it.
But they find this entrance and they head down and they just see the river of slime. And inadvertently get pulled into the slime, all 3 of them, and just go...
Well, Winston gets pulled in, doesn't he? And the other 2 are just like, well, in we go.
Yeah, we've got to follow him, you know. We definitely get moaned if we just leave him to die.
And we see them crawling out of the manhole cover. They see them coming out. I mean, it's like they filmed this in like a January in New York, covered in this shit while they're taking off all those layers of clothes, freezing cold, covered in a horrible substance. But yeah, you know, the slimes make them negative, so the Ghostbusters start lashing out at each other.
Yeah.
Until he quickly realizes, like, no, quickly take off the suits. They're covered in the slime.
Yeah.
We need to go and tell Peter. Yeah. You get the sequence where they burst into the restaurant, making a scene, flicking slime at the customers. And then, of course, in come the security, in come the police. It's time to be escorted to see the mayor again.
Yeah. And they sit down with the mayor just like in the first movie, and they're trying to explain to him. And I find this bit really unbelievable, that the mayor, after everything he dealt with in the first movie, is going to not believe them this time
round. It's
the
biggest criticism of this film, is that everyone goes, yeah, there's no such thing as ghosts. Nobody remembers Stave Puft Marshmallow Man.
How can you not? It's a fucking 100-foot marshmallow man.
Like, if it happened in any world, you'd think we'd remember it, but they're like, no, apparently it was like mass hypnosis. It was a conspiracy, a cover-up,
and you let these guys go back out on the street so they can do it again? Ooh.
Yeah, it's a big complaint because he can't easily explain it away.
I mean, his aide plays the villain quite well, like Walter Peck in the first movie, where he...
In the original script, it was going to be Walter Peck again, but they were like, look, the film's already too much of a remake. If we bring him back, then no, it's too much.
Yeah, it's too much. And him, this aide locking up them in a psychiatric ward is kind of good to get away from the mayor. But you've already built the mayor up as somebody who doesn't care, doesn't believe. It would have been a lot better in this situation where he's talking to the Ghostbusters. He's telling them, okay, you've got everything, speak to my aide, I'll go off and sort out the press. And then the aide locks them up.
Betrays. That would have made more sense.
That would have made more sense. But the mayor's just like, no, but I don't care. And then the next time we see the mayor, he's like, I spent all night last night talking to a ghost. I'm like, really?
Well, exactly.
Wow, I'm going to fire you, aide, now because you locked up the Ghostbusters. It's not his fault. You were practically telling them to get fucked. I did like Bobby Brown's little appearance. I mean, Bobby Brown sung one of the songs for the soundtrack, and instead of being paid, he just wanted a moment.
Yeah,
and
in the film.
So he gets told by the Ghostbusters that proton packs are not for children, even though every child in 1989 pretty much had one.
Well, not a real one, but yeah. But then another little cameo here as well is it's Bill Murray's older brother playing the psychiatrist in the hospital. And, when they're sat at the table and they all explain what's going on and the psychiatrist is just looking at them all like, yeah, you're all fucking nuts. Like, especially if you haven't seen any of the supernatural stuff, you'd be like, yeah, this is crazy talk.
Yeah, but he must have in the last 5 years.
I don't know, maybe he just moved into New York. I don't know. The Ghostbusters only existed in New York. They didn't have the internet then. There was no YouTube. There was no Instagram. There's no Stay Puffed on Twitter.
I'm not even touching any of that. I'll be here for 3 hours. But I did like the idea as well that Louis Tully supposedly had a brother played by Eugene Levy who was supposed to be the orderly in the psychiatric ward that helps the four guys escape.
Yeah.
And while the Ghostbusters have been locked up, the slime has come out. And much like in the first movie, as the ghosts have escaped from the containment unit, the slime gets out and starts to bring things back to life or do certain, like, I understand how her coat comes to life because it's fur and the spirits of the fur come back. I'm not entirely sure how the Titanic comes back.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a cool image.
Yeah, I love it. This is why I love Ghostbusters 2 kind of more than the first one, because I love the Titanic so much and seeing it there in its ghostly apparition form.
Well, apparently they were going to have the Hindenburg blimp or something.
They were,
but I guess that was too expensive. And then again,
and a bunch of people on fire.
The Titanic was supposed to arrive at that pier in New York, so it was like. It was awesome just to see it there, like the hole in the ship and all of the.
But how did the slime make the ghost and all the ghosts of the dead people from the Atlantic?
There's so many problems with this film when you try to explain this stuff because the goo doesn't make sense.
It kind of does. It's the negative energy of New York, and so that's kind of maybe the memories of New Yorkers who wanted to see the Titanic. I don't know.
All of the ghosts walking off of the Titanic didn't look like the monsters are going around going. Blah, blah, blah. They all just look like people like fucking. We made it.
Yeah. But it's a cool effect.
It is. It's a really cool effect, and of course you got Cheech Marin there as well as another cameo.
And so the city of New York is terrified. They need the Ghostbusters back. Dana had returned home after the date with Peter and he'd been arrested. And Janosch had turned up in a really kind of scary, evil-made ghost uniform. Like, I don't know if that's really him or psychic projection.
It's scary, it's cool, but again, I don't think it makes sense because he's not a ghost, yet he's behaving like a ghost now, and he won't do that again in the film, and he hasn't done that before.
And he kidnaps baby Oscar off the side of the roof because baby's like climbing on the rooftops of buildings.
Yeah, and can balance on the edge.
I do. It's amazing. I always loved the fact they were twins.
Yes,
as well. Yeah. One's crying, so change him for the next one. But you never tell. No. You never tell unless you really look. And so he's been whisked off. Dana has rushed off to the museum, and it sealed her inside and covered itself in a shell of goo. We already understand that we don't know how it works, so we're just going with it, okay, people? It looks like a giant Jello mold. And the Ghostbusters have been released by from the psychiatric ward and raced to there and try to use their proton packs on it. And it just doesn't work. And so much as another callback to the first movie, we need a giant thing to kind of help to battle the last evil.
Exactly. Now, there is another deleted scene here, and I guess it was deleted because it went against the film's thing of nobody dies in this film.
Right.
Is that the aide of the mayor, he gets so irate that the Ghostbusters can't do anything, so he goes up and he starts yelling at the slime.
Right.
And he smacks it, and then the slime devours him. And his shoes fall down smoking. So he actually dies. The slime killed him. And I'm like, how does the slime work?
No.
Does it going to make a ghost of him?
His
deleted scene anyway, so it's...
Yeah, him at the end singing with his family, I think is a lot better.
Now, there was also... Should bring up... There's a lot of deleted scenes in this film. I guess they didn't know what worked. Now, one thing that you thought would be more prominent in the film is the appearance of Slimer. He does appear in the film here and there.
Yeah.
He was an unfortunate big addition to the cartoon series.
Yeah.
But there was this whole series of events in the film that was cut involving Louis Tully training himself to become a Ghostbuster without letting the guys know. And his first unofficial challenge to himself is to catch Slimer. And so there's sequences of him chasing Slimer with a proton pack around the firehouse, Janine yelling at him trying to get ready for it, and him setting traps for Slimer. It was just all like Louis and Slimer. And it took too much away from the Ghostbusters, I guess.
Totally. I'm trying to work out how that would work. I mean, the little bits that we get are cool. Like, I never really had the connection between the animated series and the films. To me, they were always separate. Much like He-Man and his movies, and the Turtles and their movies, they were separate. I know people tried to interject them, but having Slimer there kind of made sense to me that he wasn't much of a threat. He's their first ghost they captured. How he got out of the trap,
they all got out. They all got released from the containment field.
That is true.
But then again, all those spirits were consumed by Gozer to open the gateway.
That is true.
But I'm guessing Slimer, he was a smarter one.
Well, yeah,
he got away.
And when you have Louis Tully, he's just had his first sexual experience, I assume, with Janine.
One that he remembers, I guess.
One that he remembers, and then him dressing up as a Ghostbuster, I always thought was cool because I always believed that there should have always been a fifth Ghostbuster. The way that Louis comes up to the bus, it's typical A. Louis, that is. He can't drive or he doesn't have a car. He's got to go and help the guys, and Slimer's driving the bus. It's cool. It's just your little nod. And so him getting the bus to the museum on his own, and even becoming the hero at the end because he does help to destroy the shield. After the guys have used their goo that they've positively charged, how this works, we're not entirely sure, but they take all the goo that they've collected or that they've saved or whatever, and they've positively charged it, and they just spray the inside of the Statue of Liberty. Which is just so fucking awesome.
It is awesome, but then I'm looking at the tanks that they're carrying, and I'm like, you've really filled the entirety of this thing, and you have spare?
Yes, they did. They use a special Nintendo controller stick arcade system to walk the fucking thing.
I love it. But it makes no sense whatsoever. The way the Statue of Liberty moves, the fact that the torch catches fire, the fact that its feet move, the fact that the robes all move, I'm just like...
See, well, okay, so if we go back and think about it, the Scoleri brothers were brought out by the negativity of the judge.
Yeah.
Positively charging all of this goo and then spraying the inside of it, while four of them fully believe that they want the Statue of Liberty to come alive.
Yeah.
The fire is going to come because it's spectral fire.
Yeah. But I mean, they made the toaster come alive. The toaster didn't, walk. It kind of bounced and hopped.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine the Statue of Liberty to do. It's just just bouncing and
hopping.
Oh man,
if it danced its way to the fucking sub to the museum, I'd have died.
But no, it's got to walk. It's got to walk.
Keep on. Just dancing down the road. I mean, you wouldn't be able to do it. It's 89. The model work. You had to have.
There's another person in a suit, like they did Marshmallow Man with the miniature set. They just recreated it, and it looks good. I mean, the foot coming down on the cop car.
Sorry,
great sequence. Yeah,
my fault.
And of course, all of the cheering of the Statue of Liberty. They get to the museum, and the power of the ooze starts to fade, and so it releases an opening. The glass, window at the top, they smash it through, and the Ghostbusters heroic moment as they come down the drop ropes, ready to face Vigo.
It's an alright ending.
Well, in the original script, they drop down with the ropes and they blast Vigo into the painting and destroy him there and then, like boom, done, end of movie. But again, the test audiences were like, there's not enough stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why they went back. They refilmed the ending. They refilmed all the other ghost and scares. And that's why when you look at this ending, once they've landed, almost everything's really tight and really well focused.
Yes.
That's because they already got rid of the set.
Yes.
And so that's why it feels very minimal when it comes to the grand finale.
I suppose that's what makes this movie even more beautiful to me, is that the fact that they've... A lot of times when you have to do reshoots, it's really difficult. Look at fucking Superman's chin. You know? That's like really bad. This is 89 and they're like, look, we really need to reshoot it. The guy can't really speak English and haven't got Max von Sydow anymore. The most he can do is look scary and imposing. Yeah. And he does. Like, you know, when he walks out of the painting, I'm like, man, this could be a great battle sequence. But you don't. He fires like a purple mouth blast that paralyzes them. Dana is held together in like a plastic tube.
Right.
like it's such a shame. Like she should have fought out. I know it's cheesy. I know it's a crap idea sometimes, but for me, Ghostbusters has always been about heart. Everybody gets together singing the Ghostbusters tune, dancing the Ghostbusters dance, you know. Everybody loves busting fucking ghosts. You know, and so involving the city of New York, getting them to sing, you know, the Auld Lang Syne New Year's Eve tune, it just...
all that positive energy.
Yes.
Everyone at the same point in time is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that's what hurts and helps destroy Vigo.
And that's also an idea.
I think it's a great idea. The film has, I'm going to say this, a very shit setup for it.
Oh.
Because if you wanted to go, okay, New York is being negatively impacted, or the negative energy is making the U's do this, show it!
Yeah, but...
we don't see New York being horrible to each other at all in the film.
Well, you don't need to, first off. Well, a lot of people know that.
You do need to see it. You do need to see it. You
But
need to
also-
establish it in a film.
But also, we've just been talking about how many fucking speed bumps this film hit in production anyway.
Yeah.
You know, we are just hitting another one where we're saying, why didn't you do this? It may have made the movie better.
It would have upped the stakes. It would have shown the impact of New York, because New York is such a big part of the first film. In this one,
yeah, but we didn't need it at the end of the first one as well. That's a minimalist set with the four guys facing a door. They fight a door.
That was a massive set at the end of the first one.
Yeah, but they fight a door, but we know that the whole of New York is at stake if they don't destroy it. And I personally feel the exact same way with this. There's more people, I think, in the crowd at Ghostbusters 2 singing Auld Lang Syne than there is in the crowd at the end of the first one. And the people at the end of the first one forgot there were ghosts. You know? The people here should have been at the beginning of this fucking movie singing, hey, yeah, we totally believe in ghosts because we love the Ghostbusters. And they do. They fight Vigo back. They splatter him with positively charged goo. They hit the portrait as well with the proton packs. He flies back there, and he even slightly possesses Ray for a bit because it's his last chance at survival. I mean, we didn't bring it up, but I love Egon's line about how the fact that he was shot, stabbed, hung, butchered, hung, drawn and quartered, and when his head finally fucking died, you know, he gave that almighty amazing backline. But he possesses Ray quickly, and then they just blast Ray with positively charged goo. Now, they've done the same thing to Janov, so I like to feel that whatever power was possessing them was dissipated by the positive goo, and he gets shot back into the portrait and it's blown up. Yes, it's a bigger impact, epic ending than it would have been if what they gave test audiences. It's not as big as the one in the first one, but I actually kind of like that because it's Ghostbusters 2. I'm good. I've had the big almighty finale from the first movie. This one's given me just enough to make me go, man, I miss the Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
You know? And then you see, like if we're going to talk shit that we don't understand, how did they get that painting at the end?
Yeah, I'm guessing a ghost painted it from the other side. As a thank you.
Why? Thank you for sealing us
For sealing
in here?
Vigo.
For destroying us?
The good ghosts.
Like,
it's the last joke of the film.
Yeah,
So it's just
it
like
is.
boom and then credits. So you're not meant to think about it.
no. It follows the credits just like the first movie. We see everybody outside, everybody coming out. They're happy, they're cheery. You know, like we said, we see the mayor's aide there singing with people. So,
Yeah.
you know, Lewis is happy. Movie over. Let's get a third one.
We might have to wait a while. From 1989.
Oh, yeah. I mean, supposedly it's a couple of weeks
Well,
by
that's it.
Christmas.
Exactly, yeah. By the time this video's out, it'll be out. Well, Iain, what were your favourite scenes from Ghostbusters 2?
Oh man, I had a list, but I don't care. I love all of Ghostbusters 2. My all-time memorable, best favorite scene in the whole of the movie is that sequence of the Titanic. I absolutely loved it. I kind of obsessed with the Titanic disaster itself. And as a kid, seeing it there, the big hole in the side, which we know now after fucking James Cameron's movie, like none of that would happen. The ship would be in two pieces. There'd be a big hole. You know, half these people would be skeletons because their flesh would have been rotted in the sea.
I don't even know if there'll be skeletons left by now.
I don't even know how it works, but it's up there. All of the ghost stuff, all of the Ghostbusters stuff, all the stuff with Sigourney Weaver. I love it.
Yeah. There's so many great scenes. I think my favourite scene in the whole film, though, is the courthouse scene.
Yes.
From the very beginning right up to when they've captured the ghost and the montage kicks off. That's for me like when this film really gets going.
Yeah.
And of course, I love all the intro scenes to them going to the party, the TV show, Ray's occult bookstore, the experiments. I love watching the Ghostbusters together. And what I like in the second one is watching them doing the research. Like in the first one, when they're analyzing Louis Tully and finding out about Gozer.
Yeah.
Like in this one, finding out about Vigo and the research that they were doing,
Yes.
the experiments, the photography. I was like, I found all that stuff interesting. I wanted to know more about the supernatural.
Yes.
And the Ghostbusters were giving me that. I had part of a slinky and I straightened it. One of my favourite lines. Suck it in, guys, we're the Ghostbusters. Another one of my favourite lines. And I think Janosch has one of my favourite lines as well. When we first see him in the museum.
Yeah.
And he's like, everything you're doing is bad. I just want you to know this. I'm just like,
Oh, I wooed.
a child?
A child.
He has so many great lines and he's super creepy in the role. He almost steals it. He really does. He's that good in it.
Yeah.
Well, Iain, do you recommend Ghostbusters 2?
I totally fucking do. Like I said, I'm a bit of a sequel hoe. And maybe I'm massively biased when it comes to sequels over other movies. But, you know, I know it's not as good as the first one. And we could highlight as many things about the first one that are so much better than this one. But this one just took that and then just brought it back into the light. We may never have had a sequel. You know, we may have just had Ghostbusters and then Ghostbusters 2016. I've got my issues with that one and I'm not going into it. And I'm sure I will slightly have issues with Afterlife and that will cause a heck of a load of arguments. I don't give a shit. Ghostbusters 2. 2 thumbs up.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be recommending Ghostbusters 2. And I agree. It's not as good as the original. While it retreads and, you know, the beats and sequences and the events from it, the sequel still offers more gags, new ghosts, new toys, expanded lore, and a chance to catch up with the characters we loved. The sequel is a good continuation of those characters in this world, and the chemistry they share, which made it special in the first film, shines here. The cast resuming the roles perfectly. The special effects hold up a little better here. Industrial Light and Magic did a great job bringing the ghosts and various effects to life. The miniatures, matte paintings looked great, really memorable. The bathtub scene being maybe my only exception. The music score, though, for me, is the weakest part of the film. Randy Elderman's music doesn't compare to the original, and it doesn't fit some of the scenes, and it becomes a little bit annoying in places. And again, the music and the covers of the songs, like the one by Run DMC, it isn't as memorable or as fitting for me personally. Watch Ghostbusters 2 for the characters, the dialogue, the humour, the effects. It's a feel-good movie, despite having some darker themes, and it works really well as a sequel and a companion to the original. It's well made, has good familiar pace, it's very entertaining, great fantasy and comedy, and if you love the Ghostbusters universe, this is a must-watch. Be ready to believe us. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Review.
Me feel good.
Do something! Why don't you just tell them you don't believe in ghosts?